A very warm good afternoon to all. Hope you are having a great day. Myself, Sri Lakshmi, Secretary of IEEE EMBS Sahrdaya SP. On behalf of IEEE Engineering in Medicine and Biology Society of Sahrdaya SP, let me welcome all of you to the first talk of EPIGNOSIS Talk series. Engineering in Medicine and Biology Society (EMBS) is the world's largest international society of biomedical engineers, which is an intersection of engineering, life science, and healthcare to explore, replace, and fix a target system to ultimately improve the quality of healthcare. Today, for our first talk, we have come up with a relevant topic and the need of the time. The pandemic and followed lockdown had hardly impacted all lives. On one side, people were affected by the diseases and they were really struggling to hold on to their lives. Social workers were exhaustively working to save their lives. We lost a lot of fellow beings. This is one phase known to the world. But on the other hand, most of the people were sitting in their home, in their comfort space, with their family members, with all the facilities in their hand tip. Still, they were also suffering silently. The rate of people with mental issues, the rate of depression, all went up during this period. Everyone among us might have gone through anxiety issues once or the other. So I am really sure that you all might be waiting to hear from an expert related to this. For this, today we have Ms. Aisha Sharma with us. Speaking about Aisha Sharma, she is a psychotherapist with a master's degree in clinical mental health from University College London. She has extensive experience with adolescents and adults. She has previously worked as a college counselor, heading the J.N. Herdiak Center for Counseling at Sophia College for Women, researcher, group facilitator for schools, and senior research and programs officer at iCall Helpline, Tata Institute of Social Science. She has been working towards better mental health outcome over the past 4.5 years. Currently, she is the founder of Dialogue Mental Health, her private practice, Mumbai. With immense pleasure, let me invite Ms. Aisha Sharma. Hi, ma'am.
Thank,
Welcome to the session.
thank you so much for having me, Sri Lakshmi, and the whole team at your college. I'm very happy to be here. Um, just wanted to check if you can see me okay, hear me okay.
Yes, ma'am. All
Okay,
perfect.
all
Ma'am,
right.
I'm hoping you're having a great day. So, the platform is all yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Let me just try to share my screen. Thank you so much for having me. And I think, the topic that we're talking about today, like Sri Lakshmi said in her introduction, that yes, a lot of us have been lucky. A lot of us um, have homes to be at, and we are in that way protected in some ways. But along with this pandemic that's going on of the virus, there is also a very real, widespread kind of mental health pandemic, in a way, if we can say, in which all of us, in some degree, whether it's big or small, whether it's, impactful or not impactful, whether we feel like we need to seek help for it or not, in some way or the other we are impacted by what is happening in the outside world, not just in physical ways, not just that we may not out, we will have to mask, but also in mental and psychological ways. I think right now the question is not of whether or not somebody is impacted emotionally, but to what extent we are impacted emotionally. In some small way or big way, whether it is having to stay at home so that we can socially distance and kind of contribute in that way to society, or whether it is, not having friends that we can meet on the everyday, whether it is being at home with the same four people, whether it is, doing chores at home, helping out your parents. All of these smaller things may have a mental health impact along with the bigger things. If we've had a family member who's fallen ill, if we have fallen ill, if there are if there are some big or small events that have happened, any kind of loss, any um, kind of instability that has happened in our lives due to whatever reason because of this pandemic has had a toll on our mental health. We might notice it in smaller ways, that we're staying up later than usual. We don't have a regular sleep routine. Our routines have gone for a, have gone haywire in that sense. Or we may look at it in bigger ways, that, I'm feeling sad for a long period of time, or that I'm not able to focus on work or studying as I used to be able to. And so, actually, the question that arises is, can we really, expect to go on? I'm sure that for all of you, even in college, not having college in person has been difficult and different in its own new ways. Not having your friends to meet every day, not having the canteen to kind of congregate at every day has been difficult in its own ways. It's not just been that, but alongside the studying, a lot more responsibilities may have piled up for some of you. Whether it is helping out at home, whether it is taking care of a parent or a relative, whether it is ensuring that there are enough resources at home. Some people may have lost jobs, some people may have had plans for the future that have gone absolutely, you know um, not according to what we had planned. So in whatever small or big ways, this pandemic has kind of impacted our internal worlds as much as it has impacted our external worlds. That's why I think, I chose the topic name, coping with the mental health pandemic, because there is also a very real mental health pandemic. All of us, in some small way or big way, are impacted, whether it is anxious feelings. What am I going to do next? How can I protect myself? How can I stay safe from this virus? What about my examinations? When will they be announced? When should I start preparing for them? What about my future plans? I had to apply for a job this year, or I had to kind of graduate this year. I had to apply to another course this year. What will happen about that? There are those anxious feelings that we're coping with, but there are also bigger feelings. There are also feelings of hopelessness. When will this end? It feels like a never ending stretch of time, the pandemic. Life as we know it has changed in a lot of ways. So it is not just that we're expected to lead life as though, oh, everything is normal and we're just sitting at home and doing the same things, but a lot has changed in our context. So in the background, you know, of our lives, there are these big emotions that we're all dealing with, like this kind of cloudy sky, you know, uh, because we're not just looking at, I have a task to do and I'm a student, or I am at home and I just have to focus on the chores, but we're constantly also riddled with a sense of exhaustion, maybe, where some of us are tired of having to stay at home. Some of us are tired at having to do and manage all these different roles and jobs and work that we have, whether it is, not knowing when to end. If you went to college, from 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock, we would have lectures and then it would end. Now, maybe there are some changes for some of you. For other people, if you're working jobs, work from home has been absolutely different. That some people work way beyond because we're assumed to be available. If we have had a difficult experience with coronavirus and we have unfortunately been affected by it in any way, we feel a sense of panic, we feel a sense of anxiety, and we think, oh my god, what next? Because there is so much unpredictability. We don't know exactly how the course of this virus is. It keeps changing. Or for some people, we might feel sadness, we might feel guilt, we might feel like we didn't do enough in certain circumstances, especially with regards to parents, or with regards to elders in the house. We may feel like, oh, did I take enough precautions? Am I doing enough to help out? Or we might feel like, am I I'm doing too much, and I may feel burnt out in the sense that I'm unable to be there as I would normally because I'm very, very exhausted. I'm very, very tired from having to juggle all these different roles. We feel isolated. Earlier, if we had XYZ number of things to do, we would still have our sources of connection, our sources of support, our friends, our relationships, our mentors, our teachers. Even smaller relationships that you don't have a name to. Somebody you meet at the canteen who gives you coffee every day. Somebody you meet, when you're traveling on your regular route to college or back home from college. So all of these different things, make us feel isolated, like we're alone. Suddenly we're not so much in touch. Suddenly we don't know what's happening, and we feel like, am I the only one who's feeling this way? So all of these kind of mixture of feelings, helplessness. In the middle, our country was facing extremely high number of cases, and a lot of us may have felt kind of very scared about, in case this second wave hits us, what am I to do? How will I get resources? How will I make sure that my loved ones are safe? So that helplessness, that hopelessness, is there any way out of this? When will it end? We feel anger sometimes, not just towards things around us, including maybe the way that things are or how we have dealt with them, but also towards ourselves. Sometimes when we feel like everything is out of my control and I don't know what to do, and I just feel so angry about it, because all of these things that have happened over the past 1.5 years have actually been out of our control. The arrival of the pandemic was out of our control. The containment of it is sometimes out of our control. The safety of our loved ones, if we're sitting at home, we've masked, we've taken all the precautions. Sometimes, despite the best of precautions, things are still out of our control. So when we are looking at our circumstances, when we're looking at, okay, how am I feeling today, we must take into consideration the background of our feelings, the context. you know um, this is a time of great uncertainty, especially for students, especially for individuals who were on the cusp of going out into the world. You were on your way to kind of realizing your plans, putting down certain structures for yourself, for your future. Or whether it is even smaller things about, I wanted to score well in this and I just don't know when I can start preparing. Like I said, examinations are sometimes not announced because there's so much uncertainty. Or sometimes we may feel like, how will I get that dream job now? Because everything has been suspended in the air. And, there is that huge time of uncertainty, not just career wise, personally, like we said, there is actually a threat to our survival. We remember, that the virus is actually can and has impacted maybe some of us sitting in today's audience also, in ways that have been painful. Whether it is seeing somebody we love go through a very, very tough time, or whether it is loss of some kind, whether it's the loss of an idea, loss of control, loss of a person, loss of a plan, loss of connection. So in these times of uncertainty, where we can't say anything for sure, there is bound to be an anxiousness. Anxiousness is essentially worry. It is great, deep concern about what next. How do we get and cope with this? What's happening? So I think there have been very many things that contribute to this uncertainty. Some of which I've listed here, that there is a threat to survival. There is a loss of control. You know, the only thing we can control in today and right now with these circumstances, what am I going to do with my next minute? What am I going to do with my next hour? What am I going to do with my next day? But for a lot of things to be outside of our control, we can sometimes feel helpless. We can sometimes feel angry. We can sometimes feel all these big emotions. Our safety nets, Sometimes connecting with your friend in person is very, very different than being at home alone and kind of coping with these feelings, because there is no regularity of touch, you know. A lot of times now when we're scrolling through information and news, and the thing about anxiety is that a lot of times we try to get as much information as possible so that we can be certain about some things. We're trying to kind of balance out the uncertainty with getting more and more information. We're reading excessively online, we're scrolling all the time. And there's been an interesting word that's been coined called doom scrolling, in that we do a deep dive into the internet to gather more and more information that may make us actually more anxious, because in the process of trying to give ourselves more information, we might actually be feeding certain worries of ours, whether it's the worry of safety, whether it's the worry of the future, whatever kind of worry there may be. And we're thinking a lot. So the last point is rumination. We're thinking a lot. We're trying to plan when actually in these circumstances, uh, a lot of things are not in our control. So we're very worried. Some of us are kind of getting sleepless nights. Some of us are waking up earlier. Some of us are unable to concentrate. Some of us are not able to be as we used to be pre-pandemic. And all of these things are kind of, um, you know, signs that we're coping with very, very abnormal circumstances in that sense. So how do we then cope with what's happening? First and foremost, we acknowledge that these are abnormal circumstances. First and foremost, to remind ourselves constantly that this is not how things used to be for us. It's a very big change. All of us are going through this, and that in abnormal circumstances, whatever way that we are reacting is kind of, there are no rules to how we should be reacting or acting or feeling, because any kind of emotion that's coming up for us right now is kind of a reaction to this abnormal circumstance. It's in a way we're trying to adapt to it. So to really have some compassion for ourselves, our feelings, the things around us, and say, you know what, let me contextualize this for myself. Let me give a background to this and say, okay, I understand my reactions, other people's reactions, what in the context of what's happening in the world on a global level, not just in our country. On a global level, this is an abnormal circumstance. Every country is kind of coping with this. On a national level, definitely it is an abnormal circumstance. On a personal level, this is an abnormal circumstance. We're not used to relationships changing so much. We're not used to, being physically distant. Maybe we're not used to having so many changes come in all at once. So just to have some compassion, hold some space for ourselves, and to acknowledge that these are not normal situation. This is not a normal situation, and that it's okay for me to be feeling whatever I'm feeling, and that there is a way out of it. So just to kind of contextualize ourselves in what's happening. And the second thing to remember is, is that we're not the only ones in the pandemic. We, all of us, every single person here, uh, whether it's in your locality, whether it is in our state, whether it's in the country, whether it's globally, has been impacted, and we're all currently trying to cope with it together. So a lot of the times, when we feel like I'm the only one going through such an experience of, say, being socially distant, I'm the only one who's going through this such feelings of loneliness, I'm the only one who's experiencing such anger, grief, loss, I'm the only one who's experiencing, my plans for the future going somewhere that I don't understand. Just to know that there are many, many, many others who are probably experiencing very, very similar things as you, because there are many people in the same boat as you. There are, maybe we're not aware of them yet. Maybe you've not connected with them yet. Maybe you don't know of them. But nationally, a lot of people are sailing in the same boat. And that in itself, that knowing, that acknowledgement that I'm not the only one who's having to do these things. I'm not the only one who's having to give up these things. I'm not the only one who's having to experience these feelings. I'm not alone in them. Can be very, very important to remind ourselves that not the only one in this. I'm not alone in feeling this. There are many other people who are there, in very similar such situations as me. Doesn't mean that my situation is not painful, is not distressing. Yes, it is, most definitely, but that you're not alone in it. To remind ourselves of that. Like we said, when everything around us is really out of our control in a lot of ways, the smallest thing we can do to bring some structure back to our lives, to bring some predictability back to our lives, is to start by focusing on the very tiny things in our control. Can I make my bed right now? What do I want to eat for food? Can I help with this XYZ thing? What kind of activity do I want to be engaged in for the next half an hour? Do I want to read this one book? Do I want to do this one thing? All of these kind of things that we talk about really help to bring some semblance of predictability, some semblance of structure. Okay, even if I'm at home, can I wake up at a regular time? Can I is the smallest thing that I can control is my wake up time. Do I want to focus on that? Or what time I sleep? Can I focus on that? To kind of really gear our attention towards these smaller things that are in our control. Right from the time that we wake up in the morning to the time that we sleep at night. Rather than focusing on when will the pandemic end. Well, there's no answer to that, unfortunately, yet, and we're all hoping and praying one fine day. But for now, what would really help is to bring your attention to the things within your circle of control, rather than kind of focusing on the things that are not in our control. When we keep looking outside the window and we say, why is it raining, why is it raining, I don't want it to rain, it's almost like we're saying, I can control the weather with my want. Unfortunately, right now that may not be possible. Can I get a date for my examination? I may not have the answer to that yet, but to kind of bring some kind of structure to my life, can I focus on something in my day that gives me that certainty, that predictability, that will help my feelings of anxiousness, my feelings of worry, what is to happen next. I think another thing that a lot of people relate to, especially in the kind of work that I'm doing and the people that I meet, is that it feels all like a non-stop year, that we have just been doing and we have been adjusting, we have been coping and adapting to the newness a lot. Whether it is at home, whether it is at work, whether it is at studying, whether it is in any other space of our lives, the only thing that we have been doing is kind of been engaged in activity. So to have these breaks in the middle of your day where you pause, some of us may have a to-do list where you write down all the things that you need to do, all the work that you need to do. But very rarely do we take out time to really connect with ourselves. What am I feeling right now? How am I coping? Am I doing okay? What do I need? To have these questions be asked very actively and directly to ourselves. Have we taken the time to connect to ourselves actually? Because in the middle of so much doing, in the middle of so much adapting, in the middle of so much change, have we taken a moment to center ourselves? And in what ways can we do that? So pause rituals is actually something I read in a book called Anxiety by Dr. Sonali Gupta. And it's very interesting because the way that you have a to-do list for doing things, it's very important to also include these rituals. Ritual is something that you continually engage in, something of a regular engagement with yourself. So to have these rituals where you just pause and do nothing mindfully, how does that feel for you, for me? Is that something that will help me ground myself while I'm feeling all over the place? One such thing is journaling. Can I write to myself? What Sometimes people write what happened in the day. Sometimes people write, something that they learned. Sometimes people write at the end of the day three things that went well, three things they're looking forward to tomorrow, like a gratitude journal. But some way to connect with ourselves and be in touch with what I'm feeling. Otherwise, we're just doing and we're going on and on and on, and it feels non-stop. So to just have short breaks where you connect and we recharge, like recharging batteries, and we come back. And we're able to go on. So journaling is one way. Breathing is another way. Just sitting back in my chair with my feet on the ground, and I'm just noticing how I breathe. As you're listening to this, just become aware of how you're breathing right now. Is it shallow? Is it deep? Are you exhaling longer than you're inhaling? What's happening without trying to change it? Just to notice that about ourselves. And maybe then do some deep breathing. Deep breathing is very actually scientifically, it has been proven to act as a biofeedback mechanism. When we breathe deeply, it kind of signals to our brain that okay, we're safe and it's okay to relax. Whereas if you'll notice, if we feel anxious, our breath gets shallow, our breath gets shorter. We start to kind of feel activated because our body is pumping more blood. When we deep breathing, almost like when we sleep, we deep breathe. That gives a signal to the body. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system and it gives a signal to the body that it's okay to calm down right now. And we'll notice that, okay, I'm feeling more relaxed. This is another thing. Some people mindfully take out half an hour to exercise. I'm going to connect with my body by just moving in whatever small way. Can I dance for 15 minutes? Can I just move my body in a funny way? Can I, do a 30-minute exercise? Can I go for a walk? Can I listen to one song for 5 minutes in the middle of my classes? Just to look outside the window, look at some green tree, really focus on the details of that and listen to my favorite song. Smallest pause ritual. So we don't need hours and days to take a break. We can take shorter breaks as and when we find time during our day. Another thing that is really helpful, especially when we're experiencing uncertainty, when we're experiencing worry and anxiety, is to know how to soothe ourselves. So one of the things I spoke about was breathing. Another way is to just ground yourself, is to just look around you, name 5 things you can see in as much detail as possible. Name 4 things you can hear. Name 3 things you can touch. Name 2 things you can taste or remember the taste of, and 1 thing you can smell or remember the smell of. And just to kind of bring our attention to the present, because anxiety is all about the future. Aage kya hoga? What will happen in the future? How will I cope with what will happen in the future? What if the worst thing happens in the future? So in what ways can I ground myself? Grounding is an idea from nature, actually. Trees are grounded. They're able to center themselves. Similarly, when things feel like they're very windy, how can I ground myself and stay stable? So breathing, this 5-4-3-2-1 technique that I just spoke about, taking care of myself, cooking myself a nice meal, something that will bring my attention to the present. Any skill that brings our attention to the present. That's why exercising also I mentioned. All of these can be very, very, very helpful to kind of soothe ourselves when we're feeling especially activated, aroused, when our nervous system is very aroused. So we're trying to bring it in our window of tolerance where we're able to think and bring our attention to the things that will worry us lesser. Self-care can be anything, whether it is spiritual self-care, that you're connecting with um, something greater than yourself, if that applies to you and you find solace in that. For other people, it can be physical self-care, that I'm taking care of my hygiene, I'm kind of bathing, eating regularly, resting enough, all of these things. For some other people, it can be recreational self-care. Am I doing enough for leisure, for connecting with myself and my hobbies? And a lot of our anxiousness comes from the way that we're thinking about a situation. There was a very famous Greek philosopher who said, it's not the things that happen, but the view that we take of the things that happen. In what way am I looking at what has happened that impacts me? This may not apply everywhere, but in some circumstances, it does. And what is that view that we're talking about? We're talking about our thoughts. How am I thinking about this particular thing? Am I saying that, okay, only the worst thing can happen? Am I catastrophizing that this is a catastrophe and it is only the worst thing that can happen, and I don't know how we're going to get out of this is absolutely terrible? Is that what I'm telling myself? Because then I'm bound to feel very, very anxious. Am I generalizing that, that person's grandfather, grandmother, relative, something happened to them, and definitely now something will happen to me or my family or my friend's family or something like that? So when we're generalizing things, when we're assuming only the worst outcome, or when we're doing all or nothing thinking, like we're swinging between the two extremes. Either I'm very confident, no, I don't need to wear a mask, or I don't need to do these things, or nothing bad will ever happen to me. Or I'm thinking everything will happen to me. And where is the middle point? We want to be around there. We want to be cautious, but we don't want to be anxious all the time. So in what way can I find a happy middle? Can I learn to kind of identify what am I thinking about a situation that's making me anxious? Am I assuming that because I gave my exams during a pandemic, that my results will definitely be bad, and so I definitely am not going to have my dream job, a good life, XYZ? Because we can't say that for sure. That some of those things might be based on assumption for some of us. Some of them may be, us catastrophizing. These are kind of thinking errors in some ways. So in what way can I keep my thoughts in check? Because not all thoughts are facts. And for us to constantly be checking in with them and saying, hey, is that really true what I'm thinking? Because thoughts come to us as though they're facts. But for us to take a minute, just stop, check in with ourselves. How am I feeling? And what am I thinking about the situation that's making me so anxious? Is it true? What evidence is there for it? What evidence is there against it? Is there any way that I can talk to somebody and kind of find out if they're in a similar situation as me? So anything that will help balance our thoughts and bring them to a happy center. Yeah. So where we're aware that things may not go as planned, but we're also aware of our, the ways that we may be thinking and how they contribute to how we're feeling. That can help greatly when we're thinking about anxious feelings. A lot of times, like I mentioned, anxiety wants certainty. Tell me now, will it be this way or that way? Will we be safe or unsafe? Will I have that job or not? Will my exams go well or not? Will they happen this year or not? Whatever our questions may be. We begin to read up a lot, So in that bid, to really be very, very, very mindful of the kind of information that we're giving ourselves. Sometimes, there might be news that is presented in a certain way that makes us more anxious about things. Whereas in another time, we may be looking at news every 10 minutes, every hour when things are bad, just to keep a check. And when those numbers are rising and we're feeling, oh my God, it's just about in my house now. How do I escape this? It's something that may be happening, and it is happening sometimes, that things are very, very bad outside when a second wave comes or a third wave comes. But for us to be constantly in touch with news makes it feel like it's going to happen right now in our house. So how can I restrict my news diet? Can I take 10 minutes in the morning just to check in on the numbers rather than listening to it? Will that help me feel more grounded, centered, able to move with my day while being informed? Are there certain news sources that I trust more than others? Can I focus on only the facts and not opinions? Can I look at things that will help me? And am I looking only at bad news, or am I also looking at recovery rates? Just to kind of balance, it comes back to the balancing the thought idea, that just to balance those ideas, those thoughts that we're having. And if there's something in the outside that we can control, like how much time we're spending reading the news, what kind of news, with who we're talking, all of those things can really, really help center ourselves. There is a lot of, painful news in the world right now. And no doubt things are very tough for some of us, but there are still narratives that we can choose. One narrative is nothing will ever be okay, and it's changed forever, or everything is bad and everyone is impacted. Whereas the other is, oh, I know of people who have gone through this and they are still okay. Or, that if something happens, I may be able to cope with it. There are ways and means. Or, if my examinations get postponed, it's not the end of the world. I'm sure that there are other ways in which, since everybody is working under uncertain circumstances, that there are ways that we can figure this out, that we can talk about it, that, there will be other times, or there will be other provisions, and that I can find out about them. So what kind of narrative are we choosing to engage with is very, very important for us to understand, be in check about. What perspective are we taking on the situation? Not just anxiousness, not just worry, but I think for some of us, it is also, actual loss that we have experienced. For some of us sitting here, whether it is the loss of a person, whether directly or indirectly, I think all of us have experienced some kind of loss in the past 1.5 years. We know of somebody whom we may have lost. We may have personally lost somebody. A lot of us have lost hope. A lot of us have lost, a sense of direction. We have lost control. So there are very many kinds of losses. We've lost an idea of what life could have been in this year. Oh, I was going to get that job. I was going to graduate. I was going to do this extra course, whatever I was going to do an internship. And that may not have happened this year. So we're dealing with loss, not just at the literal level, but in a lot of other mental ways also, that there are mental losses that we've had. Of inanimate things, of ideas, of opportunities maybe. And when a loss happens, we kind of grieve. We feel sad about it. In a lot of ways, the sadness that comes from having lost something is very natural. Now, when we lose something, we do feel sad. When we lose someone, we definitely do feel sad. So just to know that, as we're going through these extremely difficult times, that how can we make space for that natural feeling that comes up for us, rather than saying, okay, I shouldn't be feeling this way, and this is wrong, and I'm not a weak person, and I'm not this, and Sometimes we get lost in those ideas. But in what ways can we make space for them? In what ways can we hold space for ourselves? Because as we know, the more we try to control feelings, the more they come up. So how can I hold space for them and be very compassionate and kind towards myself as I'm processing that? And that is the most important thing. We know that this year has been extremely tough, but what is important for us to remember is that we can cope with it and that there is a way out of it. And we're not alone in this feeling. So how do we cope with grief? With these big feelings of loss? First and foremost, identify what you're feeling. Is there a name that you can give to it? Would you call it sadness? Would you call it anger? Would you call it guilt? What would you call it? Because grief comes up in a lot of different emotions, comes up as a lot of different emotions. So what are you feeling? To give it a name. Am I feeling anxious? Am I feeling panicky? Am I feeling like I need to hyperventilate? Am I feeling like I don't know what's going to happen? Am I feeling a loss of control? Am I feeling okay, not okay? Any kind of name that you can give to your feeling really helps to integrate that into ourselves. A lot of times we're feeling things, but we're not saying them out loud. We're trying very hard so that we can push it out of our minds. But all emotions are actually information. A lot of you might be doing engineering, and any data is information. Emotion is a kind of data for ourselves. It tells you something about what's happening. If we're feeling sadness, sometimes it may mean that I've lost something that I really valued. If I'm feeling anxiousness, it means that there's something about the future that I'm thinking about that I feel like I can't control yet. So to name that feeling, to say what I'm feeling, and to say it to yourself, find a name for it. There's emotional vocabulary available on the internet. Just go and look up the names of the feelings. Maybe sometimes, culturally, we may or not have developed. We don't talk so much about how we feel. We say, hi, how are you? And then the person says, good. And you say, good. And what is good? Is it ecstatic? Is it happy? Is it content? Is it peaceful? Is it sad? Is it annoyed? Is it guilty, angry? So finding a name for it. The second part of that is to contextualize it. Okay, I am feeling this sadness. And can I look at my backdrop, like we said, and look at what's happening in the background, what has happened in my life recently that I may be feeling this? Oh, yes, I've been feeling very worried about my exam lately. So maybe because I'm so worried about my exam, that's something I can't control. Maybe I'm feeling that because of this. It gives a lot of meaning to that feeling, right? It doesn't feel like a random feeling, oh, I'm just feeling this. But rather, when you put it in the context of how you're actually experiencing it, what is happening that you're feeling that, it makes a lot of sense. Sometimes it is natural to be feeling those things. The third thing is, after we've named it, we know the context of it, we hold space for ourselves. When we know the reason why for something, we're more understanding, accepting, and kind of compassionate towards ourselves also. Third thing is, after I've named it, we've contextualized it, then I act. Is it something I can cope with? Is it something that I'm trying to find a way out of? Is it something that I need help coping with? If I need help, what kind of help? Do I want somebody to reach out to? Is anybody of my friends available? Is there one close person that I can call? Just one. Can I share with them what I'm feeling? Can I share with them that I need their support in this way, these particular ways I need your support? Can you call me? Can you be with me? Can you meet me? Whatever kind of support you need. And if that is enough, then great. If not, then can I reach out to a counselor? Can I reach out to a mental health professional? A lot of times, just talking about it with a friend may not serve all the purpose. We may not feel open enough to talk about it with a friend, somebody who knows us. But with a mental health professional, with a counselor who's trained to listen in a certain way, who's trained to help you think and process your feelings in a certain way, it can be very, very, very helpful to just understand what's happening, to contextualize it, to integrate it in ourselves, to move forward. Share your feelings with others. You don't have to deal with it alone. You may be able to deal with it alone, but you don't have to. When we talk about what is happening, we actually include other people in our lives in that process. We realize that we may not be the only ones feeling that. Maybe we develop vocabulary, we develop words to talk about what's happening. There is some kind of collective resilience, shared feelings that come up. That, oh, I'm not feeling okay, and how are you doing? How are you coping? Because I need some ideas, I need some help. I'm not doing very okay. I feel like, these things are not going well. I'm really struggling. How would it be to share that with somebody who you trust will understand? When you talk about that, there is some kind of stress that is alleviated, that lifts from us, because we feel like, okay, I'm not the only one. Somebody understands what I'm feeling. Whether it's a professional, whether it's a friend, whether it's a neighbor, a stranger, whoever. So, to find those networks of support, those people that you can reach out to. A lot of people during the pandemic have been reaching out to support groups where people who have a similar experience come together and share what they're talking about. And it feels, for some people, very, very therapeutic to know, oh, I'm not alone in this, thank God. That's such a relief. Some people share the way that they've been coping, and that can happen with anybody that you speak with. But to be open to sharing in that way. A lot of times, what also helps is not just to seek help, but also to be of help, kind of be engaged in something that gives us some kind of purpose. When we feel like, oh, I need help in this way, can you please help me in that way? And also that I'm able to help in this way. To have some purpose, however small it may be. Oh, I have to help this person here. Can I make a phone call? Can I, whatever ways. But also, very importantly, to seek help. Can I say that, yeah, I really need help right now? I think I need to seek help. I think it's okay to. It's okay to reach out to somebody and say, I need help. Like we said, the situation is abnormal. And for abnormal circumstances, we're dealing with it in whatever way we know best. Because we are dealing with it, right, in a lot of ways. And if there is something that can make that process easier, well, that may be worth giving a try to. Because there are many people who are available. If you are not comfortable with face-to-face, you can reach out a free counseling helpline. iCall helpline does that. Free counseling services on phone, multilingual. There are support groups that run. There are lots of people around who we can speak to. Just one. So there are these people that we can speak to. Another thing that can help is framing your day with a routine. Okay? We need a regular sleep and a regular wake time. Something that gives structure to our day, because a lot of times when we're dealing with grief and loss, we may not feel a certain way. We may not feel like going about our day as we usually would. So in what ways can I, structure my day? Regular sleeping, waking times, like we discussed, regular work and study times, that I will only work till 5 o'clock in the evening. I will start work at 9 o'clock. I will have this routine before that. I will eat breakfast before that. I will take 10 minutes to bathe, XYZ. Helps to give a structure when we don't feel like doing anything. A lot of time now we're all at home for some of us, and if we're working on the bed, if we're sleeping on the bed, you know to, it may feel like everything is at the same space. So to have these different areas where we can work and do things, can I have a small bench, or can I sit down on the floor when I'm working and then come to the bed only to sleep? In what ways can I set boundaries? If I'm at work, and a lot of us have been at work, we've been with family, we are doing a lot of things that usually, we may not have done in the past. Sometimes we're extending ourselves in certain ways. In what ways can I check in with myself and say, hey, is this okay? Am I okay doing this? And am I not okay doing that? And if I'm not, can I say, can I take some time off? I'm not comfortable doing that. But to set a boundary that helps me to do um, more of what will help to have a structure to my day. Can I say I'm feeling really not well right now, or in whatever ways, whatever is your boundary. Whether it's work timings, that I will not take calls after this time, I will not be available to work after this time. All of these are ways to set boundaries. And lastly, how can I connect to people? We've spoken a lot about sharing with other people, seeking out, reaching help, all of these things, and to kind of just have rituals of connection. I know last year a lot of us were playing online games on our phones, with people who were in different countries, different states, different cities. But it helped to keep in touch when everything was very isolating. So in what ways can I have a ritual? Technology has been a boon for us in that way. It has helped to connect with other people in ways that we didn't know was possible. Everything happens on Zoom now. The fact that I'm able to connect with you in another state altogether, I'm in Mumbai, it really helps. So in what ways can I use that to enhance my feelings of well-being, my feelings of connectedness? Can I reach out to my best friend every evening for a 5-10 minute call? Can we play some games together? Can we watch a movie together online? What is possible to do at that time? And I know as students, maybe some of you have been really doing a lot academically and personally also, that at home, managing with doing chores, helping out at home, including doing well for your exams, finishing all assignments, doing extracurricular activities, reaching out to teachers, keeping in touch with friends. Sometimes all of it can feel like a lot. And so burnout is actually a state of feeling exhausted, mentally, emotionally, physically. And we want to protect ourselves from that. And if we are already feeling that, to recognize that. First and most important thing is that we have to drop the idea. We don't have to be as productive as we were before the pandemic. I used to be able to do these many hours of study. I used to work for these many hours. I used to do these many things. per day XYZ. But the fact is, circumstances have changed very, 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 to a very large degree. So when we're saying these are abnormal circumstances, when we're saying we don't have to be so harsh with ourselves, we have to be compassionate to ourselves, we also understand that it is okay if I'm not able to do as much as I was earlier, because there is a context to it. It's not an objective standard that we have set. So we don't have to be as productive as we were before. There is this idea called toxic productivity, which says no matter what's happening in your life, oh, you have somebody at home who's ill, you are ill, no matter what's happening around you, that you're feeling certain things, you have to be extremely good at all times, or you have to achieve a certain amount of things at all times, no matter what. And that is the idea of toxic productivity, because that's not bringing the context into picture. It's not helping us to think, hold space for ourselves and be compassionate. My best may look different on different days. Some days my best looks like 100%, some days it looks like 50%, because it depends on the background. So when we're harsh with ourselves, we're criticizing ourselves and saying, oh, look, you're not doing as well as you were doing before. You're doing very badly. Look at yourself. You're not, I'm not able to do anything right. I can't even, finish my assignment on time, or I can't, I'm not doing as well as I used to be able to do. I'm not keeping in touch with so many people. We're not taking into consideration our circumstances sometimes. So to kind of really hold compassionate space for ourselves and say, I don't have to be as productive as I was pre-pandemic, because that was a different time. Things were different. Circumstances were different. Right now, what is the best that I can do with my given capability, my given emotional bandwidth? And can I connect to somebody? Because we have, most importantly, a loss of community, especially with educational institutions, because so much of educational institutions is coming together in a class, sitting with your friends, studying together, going to the library. It was kind of meeting a lot of people who were in the same situation as you. Right now, when we're sitting at home, we may feel, oh my God, it's just not happening. And I'm the only one who's not able to do it, which may not be the case. It's all of us who are impacted in the same way. So what can we do? We drop the self-criticism and we become very aware of how we talk to ourselves. Am I labeling myself? Am I calling myself incompetent, good for nothing, not good enough, bad friend, bad student, failure? Am I giving these labels to myself? Because if I am, I have to become very conscious of them. When we drop those labels, we will be able to hold ourselves compassionately. We know our limitations. Second point is that we know our limitations and we set boundaries accordingly. We say, I'm able to do this much. Is it okay if I do the rest tomorrow, please? I have some chores to do at home. I have to help out people at home. I have to take care of somebody. Whatever may be happening that puts a limitation on you, to be able to communicate that so that you're not feeling burnt out. Can we also create an environment of empathy? And that happens when we share, when we tell somebody, oh my God, I'm feeling this way. And they understand. They might understand because a lot of us are in a similar situation. And they might say, oh, I understand, it's a tough time if somebody gets COVID, or if somebody is sick, or if you're having to juggle too many responsibilities. But when there is that communication, then there is an understanding. Then there is an empathy. Then there is collective resilience, because we understand that we don't have to do everything on our own. We don't have to be so sanitized. in that, oh, I have a computer and a laptop, I should be able to do everything. Whereas there might be many, many things happening in the background. Another thing that happens with, online is that we're expected to act as though there's nothing happening around us, when actually there is. Right now in my kitchen, there is um, a lot of sounds coming from my kitchen because food is being made. There are people who, may enter and exit from other doors because I'm living with other people. So that is my reality. And for me to become increasingly um, communicative about that and say, you know what, when I'm attending a Zoom class or when I'm taking kind of, I'm doing a workshop for you, that these are still part of my identities because I'm at home. So I can't behave as though, I don't have a background. Again, like I said, the context. That puts less work on me to always be, a certain way, in a certain manner. So that might help me to not have to juggle another, responsibility, another identity, another way of being, but to hold space for myself and say, yes, I'm at home and I'm living with other people and these are things that are happening. So creating something for leisure is part of what we spoke about earlier, which is to have that pause where I'm not doing something task oriented, where I'm not just engaged in, working at home, working at school, working in my relationships, but something for myself. In what ways can I connect with myself? Do I like drawing? Do I like going out for a walk? Do I like talking to my friends? In what way can I do something for leisure? For nothing task oriented, but just for myself. And the last thing is to rest. Whether it looks like 8 hours of sleep, 10 hours of sleep, or for some people it may look like, going for a walk. For some people it may look like, connecting with themselves or their friends. For other people it may look like reading a book. For other people it may look like dancing. Whatever your idea of resting is, that I feel rested, I feel at peace, I feel recharged. How can we connect to that part? And that's the most important thing. This is a quote that I really, really liked, and it says, it's from a book called The Boy, the Horse, and the Fox. And it's by Charles Mackay. And he says, the quote says, well, what's the best thing you've learned about storms? The boy asks the horse. And the horse says, the best thing I've learned about storms is that they also end. So that there is an end in sight, and it feels like a storm for a lot of us, the pandemic, what's happening, when will it all end, but that there is an end. And I think this gives a lot of hope to a lot of us as we're going ahead, at least for me. So I thought I would include some part of it here. This is about the end of our presentation. This is our Instagram ID, Dialogue Mental Health, and MENTAL, Mental Health. But you can find us on Instagram if you want to kind of follow us for more mental health related information. But I think that's about it from my end. And I'm happy to take any questions if some of you have.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a really wonderful session and a really helpful one for all of us at this time. So,
Sure.
participants, if you have any questions, you can post that in the chat box. So, ma'am, we posted a Q&A poll in our social media pages, and we have got a couple of questions for you. So,
Sure.
let
I'd be
me
happy to
read it
answer.
out. Okay, ma'am. So, the first question is, we have been seeing an paper clip like 60% of college students are suffering from depression, a recent paper clip. So, what do you have to say about it, or what can be done to reduce its intensity?
Hmm. I think, like I said, such the circumstances are really, really, really tough. Whether it is having somebody at home who's not well, whether it is having lost something, somebody having lost a job, having lots of fear about the future. So it is very possible that a lot of us are feeling like that, you know. And the only thing that can be done then is to remind ourselves of what is important and to check in with ourselves and see what kind of help do I need with this, especially because depression is something, it's a difficult experience in that we feel very, very sad for a very long period of time. There's no motivation to kind of wake up, there's no motivation to do a lot of things. There is a sadness, that we might notice some changes in our sleeping patterns, our eating patterns. But for us to kind of then check in with ourselves and say, what kind of help do I need? There is also a lack of meaning that a lot of us are experiencing. When we go through very tough circumstances, we feel like, okay, what's the point? What's happening around us? How can we cope with it? What is the meaning of this? So we're actually thinking about very big existential questions. So for us to kind of have a safe space, reach out for help to mental health professionals is very, very, very important. To have a space where you can talk. And lots of people are offering pro bono mental health services, free mental health services. There are helplines that are available for free counseling. There are support groups that are available. So people are really doing a lot to reach out to make sure that mental health help is available.
Okay, ma'am. So, next question is uh, related to this is that, like, how can you determine if an illness is causing depression or depression is causing an illness?
How can you determine if an illness is causing a depression or a depression is causing an illness? That's interesting, but I think to reach out to a mental health professional would be the first and the only step, to kind of check in with a professional about this and let them know of your experience, to discuss what is happening, because I may not be able to give an answer to a generic question. But for if you feel like there is that you're feeling a long period of sadness, you're unable to, kind of understand what way there is forward with regards to your feelings and how you can go about that, definitely reach out to mental health professionals. There are repositories everywhere, whether it is Therapize India, whether it is the mindplan.com, you can reach out to verified mental health professionals.
Okay, ma'am. I think by now you have answered our few questions. So, the next question is how to deal with productivity crash.
Productivity
Crash.
crash. Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, I don't, the last part of my presentation was this, that we don't have to be as productive as we used to be earlier, because there is a lot that's going on. So just to check in with yourself and say, what am I feeling right now? And am I saying that despite these feelings, despite these circumstances, despite what is happening, that my productivity should be at pre-pandemic levels? Because that might be very difficult. And if that doesn't happen, we might criticize ourselves and say, oh, I'm not doing enough, I'm not doing great, and I don't know how, I'm a bad person, and I'm labeling myself, which is not helpful. It might add to my feelings of stress. But to find a way out of it, for me to really see, okay, what am I feeling that I feel like I'm unable to do as much as I used to? Is there something happening? Like I said, bring the context into picture. What is happening in my life at the moment? And what am I feeling? Am I able to connect with myself? Say that to myself. And can I schedule time? Can I find ways and see, okay, what is there something that I can do that is in my control, that I can do towards this goal of being more productive? Sometimes with productivity, what also happens is when we're procrastinating, we don't want to do something, we keep procrastinating. Sometimes it is that for some of us, we're waiting to feel motivated, and we don't know when it'll come. When we wait to feel motivated, if we wait, we'll keep waiting a long time. But for us to begin to do work, okay, can I do it for 5 minutes? Can I do it for 2 minutes? To kind of trick yourself into saying, okay, let me just do one page. Let me just read one line and then I'll see. Let me do it for 5 minutes, then I'll stop. And then can I do it for 5 more minutes and then I'll stop? In that way, we're not waiting for motivation to come. For other people, what happens with productivity is, for some of us, we feel like it has to be perfect. If I'm studying for an exam, I have to have the guarantee that I will get 100%, otherwise I'm not going to start only. So in what ways can I not hold that high standard or that critical voice in my head and say, I'll only start if you tell me, if you give me a guarantee? I may not be able to give that guarantee. So, can I start by saying, okay, let me try to do this much and I will do my best, whatever that looks like.
Yes, ma'am. We'll have one more question. That is, how to overcome toxic situations in day-to-day life, like be it from family, social media, or anywhere around.
Hmm. That's an interesting question. Part of it was answered by the presentation again, which was about boundaries. When we recognize that a boundary of mine has been crossed, that I have a non-negotiable, these things are non-negotiables for me. What do I mean by that? That this will not do for me. If somebody speaks to me in this way, it will not do for me. I cannot be treated in this way. I need basic respect. I need empathy. Whatever you need, whatever your needs may be, they may be different from somebody else's needs. But when we recognize those non-negotiables and we see that, okay, my needs are not being met, or that, my boundaries are being crossed when I've said, I don't want this, I don't like this, and that repeatedly keeps happening, in what ways can I set that boundary again? In what ways can I distance myself from that situation in some ways? Whether it is by saying, I'm not comfortable with that, or it makes me feel this way, and I would rather that we do this, suggesting what you would like in that relationship. So in whatever ways, to identify your needs first of all, and then set boundaries according to them would be helpful. But I think it would be more specific to whatever the person is referring to, and they can kind of talk about that with more specifically in their own situation with somebody they trust and mental health professionals.
Yes, ma'am. So we have came to the end of Q&A session. So we have one more thing left. So let's move
Mm.
on to the next part.
Mm.
As an initiative from IEEE EMBS of Sahrdaya SB, we
Mm.
have formed a group of volunteers and started a mass awareness campaign.
Mm.
Now,
Shri, I lost you.
oh, sorry. So now let's see an intro video created by our volunteers. Throughout history, mankind has prevailed in our darkest moments, coming together to face the very thing that would extinguish our life. This is not one of those moments. In every 100 years, human race collectively faces crisis due to pandemic, plague, cholera, Spanish flu, and now coronavirus. History tells us we can survive, but how to?
Increase awareness is key, considering the global pandemic that struck the human life and brought daily life to a standstill. We, IEEE Engineering and Medicine and Biology Society (EMBS), is coming up with a mass awareness campaign, Coaxon Reunite to Recreate.
Public awareness is important to stimulate self-mobilization, muster local knowledge and resources, as well as to initiate actions. And that is why we are here with a mass awareness campaign.
The campaign focuses on spreading awareness about the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic through various activities that can guide the society to lead a healthy and safe life.
We are planning to spread awareness through digital posters that can provide information regarding our campaign and small bit of knowledge about COVID-19.
We are making more videos which help the audience to know more on the vision and mission of this campaign. and make this campaign more reachable and to convey the information more effectively through visualization.
PowerPoint presentations are also included that can convey additional information and facts regarding various issues related to the pandemic and also subject-oriented matters to line up awareness more widely.
Through this campaign, we aim to showcase some real-life experiences of people who have encountered the COVID-19 pandemic, like survivors, professionals such as biomedical engineers, doctors, nurses, etc., as well as people who have rendered their day-and-night services like ambulance drivers, hospital attendees, and other frontline warriors through short video notes.
Through all these activities, we target to create a positive outlook among the public, keep them informed about the latest particulars, as well as shape their view and empower them to overcome the hurdles posed by the pandemic.
Each one of us have a larger responsibility to create awareness and equip the community from the base level to rule out the myths regarding the pandemic and prepare them for this battle against COVID-19.
We 45 volunteers are here to carry forward our responsibilities to arm the community with one of the most powerful weapon, awareness, and prepare ourselves to efficiently overcome all the adversities of present and post-pandemic.
Last but not the least, our campaign impart knowledge and evoke a sense of responsibility to act wisely. As we sincerely hope you all will be there with us throughout this journey to make it a grand success. As we know, our prime motto is to make awareness and thereby flatten the curve. Let's knock it off together.
Ma'am, our campaign's name is Coaxon, Reunite to Recreate. So, as said in the video, our campaign focuses on spreading awareness about the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic through various activities that can guide the society to lead a healthy and safe life. Main part of this campaign is we showcase some real life experiences of those who have encountered the pandemic situation, like COVID-19 survivors, professionals such as biomedical engineers, doctors, nurses, etc., as well as people who render their service day and night, like ambulance drivers, hospital attendees, and other frontline warriors through short video notes. So we 45 volunteers hope that the words of these frontline workers will definitely spread awareness in our society.
Great. I think that's a great initiative and very well done video. And I'm very glad, that you're doing that for your community, whether it's raising awareness or whether it's highlighting the work of frontline workers, a lot of whom, may not be recognized in everyday life, but very nice Covaxon campaign. Congratulations to your team and you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us and spending your valuable time with us in between your busy schedule. You have been taking a lot of sessions, which is something we need right now. Thank you so much, ma'am. And participants, as ma'am said, you can connect her through her Insta page, Dialogue Mental Health, which is a wonderful initiative from your side, ma'am. Okay, so participants, please note that a feedback form will be shared in the chat box. The registrants who have filled the feedback form will be provided with certificates. You have 5 minutes to fill the feedback form. And that's it. We have came to the end of today's session. So thank you for spending your time with us. We hope that we'll see in our next
Thank you
talk.
for having me, and I hope this was helpful to you and your community, and I'm very glad to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you.